For the Anglo-Indian military term, see Batta Kumārila Bhaṭṭa was a Hindu philosopher and Mimamsa scholar from Assam. He is famous for many of his seminal theses on Mimamsa, such as Mimamsaslokavarttika. Bhaṭṭa was a staunch believer in the supreme validity of Vedic injunction, a great champion of Purva-Mīmāṃsā and a confirmed ritualist. The Varttika is mainly written as a subcommentary of Sabara's commentary on Jaimini's Pūrva-Mīmāṃsā Sutras. His philosophy is classified by some scholars as existential realism. Scholars differ as regards Kumārila Bhaṭṭa's views on a personal god. For example, Vatttika believed that Batta promoted a personal god, which conflicts with the Mimamsa school. In his Varttika, Kumārila Bhaṭṭa goes to great lengths to argue against the theory of a creator god and held that the actions enjoined in the Veda had definite results without an external interference. Batta is also credited with the logical formulation of the Mimamsaic belief that the Vedas are unauthored. In particular, his defense against medieval Buddhist positions on Vedic rituals is noteworthy. Some believe that this contributed to the decline of Buddhism in India because his lifetime coincides with the period in which Buddhism began to decline. Indeed, his dialectical success against Buddhists is confirmed by Buddhist historian Taranatha, who reports that Batta defeated disciples of Buddha Pulkita, Bhavya, Dharmadasa, Dignaga and others. His work strongly influenced other schools of Indian philosophy, with the exception that while Mimamsa considers the Upanishads to be subservient to the Vedas, the Vedanta school does not think so. Linguistics views. Kumārila Bhaṭṭa and his followers in the Mimamsa tradition known as Bhattas argued for a strongly compositional view of semantics. In this view, the meaning of a sentence was understood only after understanding first the meanings of individual words. Words were independent, complete objects, a view that is close to the Fedorian view of language. He also used several Tamil words in his poems, including one of the earliest mention of the name Dravida in North Indian sources. This view was debated over some 7 or 8 centuries by the followers of Prabhakara school within Mimamsa, who argued that words do not directly designate meaning. Any meaning that arises is because it is connected with other words. This view was influenced by the holistic arguments of Bhattara's photo theory. Essentially, the Prabhakaras argued that sentence meanings are grasped directly from perceptual and contextual cues, skipping the stage of grasping singly the individual word meanings, similar to the modern view of linguistic underspecification, which relates to the dynamic turn in semantics, that also opposes purely compositional approaches to sentence meaning. Criticism of Buddhism. With the aim to prove the superiority of Vedic scripture, Kumārila Bhaṭṭa presented several novel arguments. 1. Buddhist scripture could not be correct because it had several grammatical lapses. He specifically takes the Buddhist verse, "Ime samhada dhammasamba vanti sakarana akarana vinasanti." Thus he presents his argument. The scriptures of Buddhists and Jains are composed in overwhelmingly incorrect language, words of the Magadha or Dakshinati languages, or even the dialects. Therefore false compositions. They cannot possibly be true knowledge. By contrast, the very form itself of the Veda proves its authority to be independent and absolute. This argument of Bhatta relies heavily on his idea that the meanings of each individual word should be complete for the sentence to have a meaning. It may be noted that the Pali Canon was intentionally recorded in local dialects and not in languages germane only to the scholarly. 2. Every extant school held some scripture scripture to be correct, to show that the Veda was the only correct scripture. Bhatta ingeniously said that the absence of an author would safeguard the Veda against all reproach. There was no way to prove any of the contents of Buddhist scriptures directly as wrong in spirit, unless one challenges the legitimacy and eternal nature of the scripture itself. It is well known that the Pali Canon was composed after the Buddha's parinirvana. Further, even if they were the Buddha's words, they were not eternal or unauthored like the Vedas. 3. The Sautrantika Buddhist school believed that the universe was momentary. Bhatta said that this was absurd, given that the universe does not disappear every moment. No matter how small one would define the duration of a moment, one could divide the moment into infinitely further parts. Bhatta argues, if the universe does not exist between moments, then in which of these moments does it exist? Because a moment could be infinitesimally small. Bhatta argued that the Buddhist was claiming that the universe was non-existent. 4. The determination of perception. Some scholars believe Bhatta's understanding of Buddhist philosophy was far greater than that of any other non-Buddhist philosopher of his time. Legendary lie. According to legend, Bhatta went to study Buddhism at Nalanda with the aim of refuting Buddhist doctrine in favor of Vedic religion. He was expelled from the university when he protested against his teacher ridiculing the Vedic rituals. Legend has it that even though he was thrown off of the university's tower, he survived with an eye injury. Kumārila Bhaṭṭa left Nalanda after that and settled down in Prayag. Bhatta visited many kingdoms and regionalities to debate with the Buddhist pundits. It was tradition at the time that whoever wins a debate in the king's court, the philosophy and ideology will be accepted by the king and by the subjects. To prevent the further downfall of Vedic Sanskriti, Kumārila Bhaṭṭa had defeated many Buddhist pundits and saved the country from Buddhist supremacy. It so happened that the jealous Buddhist scholars, who were unable to defeat Bhatta in debates, challenged him to a stunt. They said, if your Vedas are the truth, then nothing will happen to you when you fall from the top of a mountain. Kumārila Bhaṭṭa had utter conviction and faith in the Vedas and Sutras and readily accepted this challenge. He proclaimed, if the Vedas are the ultimate truth, nothing will happen to me, and jumped from the mountain. In doing so, there was not a scratch on his body. However, he did lose an eye. This was because he uttered if, which signifies that a person who believes the Vedas to be the ultimate would not utter it, and instead would say, the Vedas are the ultimate truth and nothing will happen to me. Quote. However, the Buddhist monks wanted Bhatta to leave and they proclaimed he had lost. Kumārila Bhaṭṭa was devastated and could not bear the defeat. It was not that someone had defeated him, he was more angry that I have failed to protect my own mother Sanskriti. He decided to take samadhi by burning himself on a pile of peanut shells, which is said to be the most torturous death. This character study can be found in the works of Pandurang Shastri Athavale. One medieval work on the life of Sankara claims that Sankara challenged Bhatta to a debate on his deathbed. Kumārila Bhaṭṭa could not debate Sankara and instead directed him to argue with his student Mandana Misra in Mahasmati. He said, you will find a home at whose gates there are a number of caged parrots discussing abstract topics like, do the Vedas have self-validity or do they depend on some external authority for the validity? Are karmas capable of yielding the fruits directly, or do they require the intervention of God to do so? Is the world eternal, or is it a mere appearance? Where you find the caged parrots discussing such abstruse philosophical problems, you will know that you have reached Mandana's place. Another work on Sankara's life, however, claims that Sankara implored Bhatta not to commit suicide. Another contradictory legend, however, says that Bhatta continued to live on with 2 wives, several students, one of whom was Prabhakara. According to this legend, Bhatta died in Varanasi at the age of 80. Works: Shlokavarttika, Tantravarttika, Tuptika, Kataroka, Kei Kumārila on Truth, Omniscience and Killing. Part 1. A critical edition of Mimamsaslokavarttika ad 1.1.2. Part 2. An annotated translation of Mimamsaslokavarttika ad 1.1.2.